Good afternoon, everyone. This is Carpo. This video will be a rambling, random rant about various subjects. So sit tight or click off. Either way, I'm going to start out with a root, because you always got to stick to your roots. Most people can probably identify this as a corn stalk. You know, I pulled this up earlier with my youngest son. He's 2. And I was teaching him about roots. I'm like, root. He's like, root. As I pulled this plant out and I washed it off for him to play with, I had always noticed how corns have 2 sets of roots. You'll notice it has the lower roots, the lateral and vertical roots, which sink in, pull up nutrients. And then they have the anchoring roots, the ingenious creation of the corn plant. You can see it has a secondary little thing along there. And these sit above ground. See, the soil sits about at this level. And you'll often see corn stalks like that. That's why it has green on it, but it's obvious these are stability. They are crutches. And I was thinking about the ingenuity of nature and how it comes up with solutions to problems like wind for a large plant, like a tall, heavy plant like corn. And I was thinking about our roots, of course, the metaphor for we have 2 different sets of roots. We have our instinctual roots, the ones below the surface, the ones that are the subconscious, the primal. And then we have our series of crutches around the outside. These are the ones that keep us stable, the ones that keep us from falling over. These are ones such as hobbies, beliefs, ideas, knowledge, seeking, fun, activities, family, love. I wouldn't like to think of love as a crutch. And I don't mean that crutch as a negative connotation, but rather the things that support us, the things that keep us going in life. And roots are an amazing thing. Our roots run deep as humans. I don't know how deep, where they go, where they come from. I like to speculate and think that mankind can conquer our primal urges, our primal instinct of selfishness, which I guess that point could be argued that humans aren't selfish by nature, but the studies done on children show that it's a dog-eat-dog world from the beginning, although there's a certain degree of compassion that we have for one another. People want to share, but people want to share because it's within their best interest to do so, because they'd like to be shared with. I'd like to live in a world where we treat others as we'd like to be treated, but unfortunately it seems like these primal roots are the ones that show the most. And we can't seem to get along on very many points. So I've been having a lot of these strange moments lately. These aha moments, but not in the sense of like revelations. And it's very hard to articulate, but I'll do my best. I've had many awakening experiences in my life that were like so revealing, where I felt like I was part of the whole. Actually, as Chris mentioned earlier in a video, he mentioned mushrooms in one of the comments, and I was thinking about that. I have a bag of, small bag of mushrooms I've been hanging on to for a special occasion, and I was thinking about that, how I do kind of a mental cleansing with mushrooms every so often. And when you are on psilocybin, you have these moments of clarity, these moments of awareness and realization. And I've been having those in my day-to-day life without psychedelics. And I guess it's what I always wanted, but it's not, I guess, what maybe not what I wanted. You know how some people say, let's say they want to make contact with aliens, and then once they do, they say, I wish I never had. Or they say that they want to, they really want to know the details about something that happened, and the person's saying, no, you don't want to know, and they tell them, they're like, God, I wish I'd never asked. Or you see a news story about a parent that did something to a kid, and you can't click on it, but you do just because you're curious, and you know you shouldn't have looked at it. Some horrible thing. In other words, we do things that maybe aren't. Whatever. You get too much information, and sometimes it can become a burden. And I got to a point back a few years back where I was kind of overwhelmed with information. I was trying to process all these different things, and I feel like I feel like 20 years ago this pile of papers was dumped on my desk, and I've been sorting through it ever since. And I got to the point where it was getting organized, but the organized piles had become so burdensome that I had to throw out a bunch of them. I had to get rid of a bunch of the piles altogether. Just throw out the file cabinets altogether, and just stick to the paperwork that was important. And I finally got all these things filed away. And I was speaking to somebody the other day about this, about like Kundalini awakening, things like this, and whether it could be a gradual process, or if it's something that happens all of a sudden. I had one guy who was, I think we're in agreement that it can happen all at once, but it can also happen over time and not even realize it, such as if a person's already awakened to a point, it's not as noticeable when these things start to happen. But a lot of strange things have been happening, and I mentioned in a video the other day how I had these, I think this all started actually a few months back when I started asking, really wanting answers, about certain, I guess, I should say I gave up on the big questions. I stopped, I realized that certain questions can't be answered, and I started putting my mind to certain ideas and practices, but not doing any particular practice or chance or anything like that. That's not what I mean, but just focusing on what I want, what I really want, and I want to know, rather than overwhelming myself. And I've been having these moments where it's like just on the verge of just on the verge of waking up from a dream. I feel like I'm in the twilight of okay, like I said, it's hard to articulate. I had to stop for a second and think about what I wanted to say, and I still couldn't figure it out. So I guess basically strange things have been happening to me, my entire life. Of course, I'm a human. Strange things happen to all of us. I've always been the kind of guy who is very skeptical, but very, almost overly open-minded, but totally skeptical. Like, it's a contradiction in itself. But it's over periods or eras, if I may. I will really get into something for a while, and then I'll get totally out of it after I found I was disillusioned, let's say. It's not that I totally believe it, it's just that I'm really into it. I've never really believed anything except for what I can, confirm through at least enough. I mean, I won't even get into what I believe. It's irrelevant. Even personal experience doesn't, justify it, and empirical evidence is different for each person. So, through my whole life I've been having weird experiences, but I figure that's just something normal for humans, and but the one thing I've never seen was I did see a strange UFO this summer, but before that I had never seen anything, a UFO. I'd never seen any aliens. I'd never spoken to any entities or a Bigfoot or anything strange. Ghosts. I'd always wanted to see a ghost, I've always got excited if it seemed like there was a ghost around. And my mom would say, every time we hear anything around here, she'd think it's a ghost. She's like really into the ghost thing, and that's cool. But for me, I've seen too many people assume that everything's a ghost. But one time, my oldest son, who was 17 at the time, he did hear footsteps in the hallway, these claws, just like Eva, our dog, who had passed away like a month before. She had really long nails and they were hard to clip, and she was like a big dog. And I don't know, it's one of those things that leaves you hanging, but it's not evidence. And anyway, so none of the strange things that other people claim have happened to me. And so I've always just kind of taken a stance of, well, these forces, these entities may or may not exist. They may not be misinterpreted as to what they are. And maybe that's why I've become so cynical as to people who claim to have ET contact, or people who claim to be channelers. And that's why I don't mention this kind of thing, the moments of clarity. Because I've heard a lot of people say, oh, they're growth pangs, they're awakening. You're awakening your pineal gland and your chakras and stuff. And whatever it may be, that's fine. I've studied chakras and I understand the pineal gland, DMT and melatonin and serotonin, and how the endorphins work, and it's amazing. The body is an amazing thing, which leads us to these problems that we run into, like, do we trust our own senses? Do we trust what we see, what we hear, what we feel? And kind of like last night, I made a video about tying in intuition to our senses and relying on our intuition. However, I think that I'm taking a step back from that stance a little bit, just to say intuition is very important, but if you rely on it for everything, you have to develop an intuition. I think it's not something like you have instinct, but your intuition is often based on your subjective experience. And we don't realize it. It's a subconscious kind of thing, and a lot of it's just there for some reason, So, we're humans. What do we do? What do we do with these experiences? And we can put labels on them. We can attach them to particular deities or, theories. But my question is always, what do we do with the information once we have it? So I guess that leads me into this idea of, why do we have to be any more than we actually are? As far as doing what we do with the information, there are people who will organize groups and have coalitions and movements, and humanity is full of all these interesting purposes, drives, desires to change things, help things, and it's wonderful to watch, And then there's also other groups whose sole focus is to, hate and oppress and push others down, and they don't even realize they're doing it. Like a lot of these Southern Baptist churches, especially the ones that are I don't mean that generally, I just mean the ones that have been attacking, say, soldiers' weddings. I think there's one particular church that would go out and say, soldiers deserve to die, and they're the ones that say fags, God hates fags, that kind of stuff. And for me, my little, in my corner of this universe, I see people like that, like when they're standing on the corner, the people who stand down there with abortion signs and stuff, with pictures of bloody fetuses. I stopped and talked to them one day, and I just said, you disgust me, basically, I'm not going to yell at people or sink to their level, and that's just my opinion, and maybe they are in the right in their world, and that's just really the point, that, maybe abortion is wrong, maybe it is right. These are the issues that we'll fight about forever. Is a life a baby? Or is a life a fetus? And at what stage is the fetus, shit. You talk about Buddhist philosophy, and you start getting into the soul and reincarnation, and you get to, I believe it's 49 days, it's when they believe the soul inhabits the body. I think it's 49. That number comes up a lot. But anyway, there's so many different theories and ideas on this, so it's easy to just scoff and laugh at the people with their opinions and their different theories about what's right and wrong. But it really is important that we come to terms on these issues. I mean, we seriously have to figure out where we're going to go. I mean, where we're going to move with this society. I mean, I wake up daily with high hopes, but at the same time a dismal outlook on, you know, society at large. Like, I've gone through these phases all my life, you know, where, oh, we can pull ourselves out of the shit. And the next day I'm like, God, we're totally screwed. We got no chance. My one consistent fear is we're going to wipe ourselves out, not through our own ignorance, but through our own technology, because a solar flare will take out the grid, or a virus will get out of control. Those are really my two only fears: the grid going down, or a major virus. But we want to make everything appear like the world's ending. And I want to talk about that for a minute while I'm on this rant. The world coming to an end, right? I always said that I was going to be that guy that said, I told you so, when the shit hits the fan. When the lights go out, when it's apocalypse time. In fact, looking down here, there's some of my emergency food supply, just some of it. I was obsessed with prepping for a while. I wanted to have everything, you know. I wanted to make sure that when the elite ran for their bunkers, I would be able to run for mine. And this started in about 1998 to 2000, somewhere around there. So I'm not new to these ideas, you know. I may just appear to be this free-flowing kind of guy who's, you know, whatever this, whatever that. I'm a very serious person. I really am. I have a lot of fun with my videos, but when it comes down to, you know, the reality of life, I'm very serious about being ready for anything, you know. I'm not going to be able to float by on my good karma when the lights go out. So, being prepared mentally for anything is super important. Being prepared physically, and, you know, having all of your finances, all of your affairs, all of your storage in order. I've got a bunch of, you know, I've got copper bars, silver bars. I don't have any gold because I can't afford it, but these are the things that you know, people will tell me, stock up on silver, stock up on this, and I feel like it's me repeating to myself. I feel like it's me talking to myself like 15 years ago. But when I say that, I don't want to be that guy that's like, oh, I used to be like you, because I hate it when people do that. Like, oh, I used to think what you think, but now I've seen the truth. And often people are that way about saying, well, I used to think that everything was okay, but now I realize everything's totally screwed, and you need to see this. But for me, it's like, hey, I used to believe that everything was totally screwed, but now I see that things are okay. And people just hate me for it when I say those things. They're like, you know, I heard for the last 3 years that Fukushima is going to destroy the planet, we're all doomed, the West Coast, all the crops are failing, all these different things. I don't know the truth, the details. The best we can do is to research it, most of us on the internet. Very few of us have been able to go over there, but I did watch an independent group of people go over and take tests and find that the levels near Fukushima were actually lower than expected. And we've actually found out that a lot of these nuclear disasters have not been as bad as had been expected or had been told. And in other words, yes, they're horrible, but they could have been a lot worse. Note, this is not supporting or denying nuclear power, this is just making a point. I heard people talking about how, you know, within a few years all the vegetation would be dead, you know. But Mother Nature has a way. Mother Nature has a way of mending herself. And that's no excuse for our behavior at all. At all. But my point that I'm trying to make here is that I'm not afraid of that anymore. I'm not afraid of these environmental catastrophes that we've created, because I feel like that they pale in comparison to what she could dish out if she really wanted to. I feel like we have a mother who's angry, but she's we're just climbing on her leg, and she's just kind of ignoring us at the moment, but eventually she's gonna bitch slap us. I mean that in the nicest possible way, of course. Let me see what the time is on this. I don't know how long this camera goes, but anyway, been doing the editing, so it doesn't really matter. I've got some serious issues with people who talk constantly about the world coming to an end. You know, fucking fear-mongering, pardon my language, but I was one of those people, and I feel like a dick. You know, my friends wouldn't even want to talk about this shit because I would constantly be like, oh man, you don't know, the Illuminati is running the show, you know, and this was 20 years ago. And so it's like, I don't like, when I say that, people are like, oh, so what, it doesn't matter, you know, so you've been, you know, learned about it a long time ago. I just choose not to discuss the issues. So, with the Illuminati thing, look, yeah, that one cut me off at about the perfect time because I don't want to talk about the Illuminati. I wasn't going to. I was going to mention that we need to drop the labels. Anybody who's researched any of this stuff knows that there are no people out there who call themselves Illuminati anymore. You can call them the elite, you can call them the Bilderberg, you can call them those who go to the Bohemian Grove, you know, the secret societies, whatever you want, but they're not the Illuminati. And I feel like that name has been raped and pillaged from the original intent. Now, I'm not going to deny that there are probably major factions out there who want to do harm for their own good. I've seen it, we've all seen it. And this includes probably many of these Freemasons that have been the scapegoats for everything wrong in society. But I don't buy it. My grandfather was a master mason. Not that that means anything, but you know, that I have a family history, and I was going through his stuff, and I've got his apron and his rings and everything, and I see the dedication that he put forth to his group. And I know he wasn't the nicest guy in his family probably, but he wasn't, you know, a guy who was involved in harming anyone. He was the chief of police in his town. He was a fair guy, well respected. Now, a lot of these people in the Freemason group are like that. You know, they're people who belong to a group to hope they can help a community and find like-minded people. You know, who aren't criminals, or you know, they're people they can trust. And people don't like closed groups. People don't like groups of anything that's you know, doesn't allow women, doesn't allow criminals, whatever you might, you know. I won't get into the details because this isn't about Freemasons or in defense of Freemasonry. What I'm saying is that there are normal people in every group, in the Freemasons, in all the political arenas, and they go to the Bohemian Grove, that are at these big meetings that don't mean to do harm to people. But more importantly than this, and this is the big picture, this doesn't mean that there aren't others doing harm. It means that there are people with good intentions. Now, this being said, the original intention of the Illuminati, okay, those who know this know that it meant the illuminated ones, those who were illuminated. The Christians absolutely hated the Illuminati, the idea of the Illuminati, because what it is it's illumination through self-empowerment and awareness. Now, some of them would abuse that and go to black magic rituals, things like that. So there's black magic and there's white magic, there's voodoo. These things are real, in my opinion. Okay, I'm not in defense of these things, but in my opinion, they're all real. It depends on the intent and the manifesting ability of the person who is the receiver and the giver. Okay, that's a very important concept. So, you know, we have magicians that can work their magic on people who believe in magic. Then we have people who don't believe, that would have no effect on these things. Basically, it has to do with self-empowerment, and the illuminated idea originally was to become self-empowered, to realize that you are part of this divine being, and that you are all at one with it. It doesn't sound like a bad thing, does it? But it's been twisted and turned into, when you hear the word Illuminati, you think of these suits and ties who are out there trying to kill us with various poisons and chemical cocktails. I don't know the details behind closed doors. I don't know what these smaller groups are really doing. I don't know what these ones that really hate the poor and that want to depopulate the world are doing. I know all about the various locations of and findings, the way that the occult knowledge was carried on into even modern day. They're using owl rituals and mock sacrifices, and these ideas carry power and energy, and I understand this. But we're giving them power by talking about them as if they have power. Now, I've often said the same thing about evil, and I've had disagreements with people in the past about whether evil exists, whether evil is an entity or a consciousness, or whether it's something manifest by people. But when I say that we give it power by talking about them, we're giving them power, doesn't mean that we have to close our mouths. To a degree, we have to talk about things. So, with the Illuminati thing, I don't know. I just think that I wanted to address that word and that idea, and mostly cover my opinion that the original intention was never to harm anyone. When you trace Freemasonry back to, I believe, Descartes, and I think he wrote The New Atlantis, didn't he? I may have got my names mixed up. Long day, but the whole idea was, Descartes writes The New Atlantis, they find this great new land, and then America is designed around that idea, and that the Freemasons, who started the whole idea, the intention by the few who originally founded it was never to run the world. It was to find a way to combine efforts and organize. Now, this is just my opinion. Nobody knows. Nobody was at the original meetings of any of these people. Nobody can go back and pretend like they know. But the reason why that's my opinion is because it's not human nature. It's human nature to want to dominate, sure. But people who build their groups built on values and standards for humanity, and those who do charity work, are not often the kind of people who want to dominate. Now, anybody you put in charge is going to, they say, power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that's just something to remember with all leaders. It doesn't matter if they have the greatest intentions when they go into office. Eventually they get sucked into the system, and they're forced to reckon with the reality of the monster that is in motion, especially in the U.S. government. Many others are very tyrannical, of course. Ours is not the worst by any means, but it's sinking fast, and we've got to reclaim it. And people like Obama, I see videos and comments and stuff that are completely unrelated that say stuff like "oh bummer" and "oh bummer care," and I saw a video that was about the nation and had nothing to do with presidents or anything, but Obama was in the description, and people are just mad at Obama. And you can look back on this and see this through all presidential. It's just that a majority of the internet users are, well, I guess I can't guess the age group, but I'm going to say, between 18 and 38, are probably more than the older group. And that kids are angry, especially the youngest generation coming up now are the ones who are seeing all this corruption for the first time, and all they know who to blame it on is the president. I was the same way with George Bush. The only difference was Bush looked and spat in all of our faces and basically said, "I'm going to do what I want." He was just more blatant about the lies. So anyway, these issues need to be addressed, these issues of corruption. But I feel like we dwell sometimes on the mundane, useless things like the Illuminati. Who the fuck are the Illuminati? What are you going to do about it? There's entire channels and websites dedicated to exposing the Illuminati, but what have they ever done? Except for, try to name people's names that have billions of dollars that go to these meetings, but it does nothing. It does nothing. The real issue has to be addressed at the root of the problem, which is societal. Where do these people get their money? Banking cartels. It's from us. All of us. So, I guess to wrap this up, this video has become very long because I have many different thoughts in my head, and when I'm doing it piece by piece, it makes it easy to kind of lose track, but, I don't expect anyone to even get this far anyway. But when I get these thoughts out, it feels good, When I say us, I mean we are all part of the problem. We buy things that we don't need, we do things that we don't need to do, and we say that it's our right, that we are entitled to these things. We think that we are owed, let's say, vacations, that we are owed nice things, nice cars, and maybe we are, maybe we aren't. The way I see it is that humanity has the potential to feed and clothe and shelter everyone and give us wonderful nanofiber technology that we could use to build massive tent cities to help people that have no shelter, turning in some of this ethanol into food instead of fuel, the corn. All these little changes that we could make, theoretically, yes, that we could change the world for the better, and we could actually, I've looked up the math, we could feed 10 billion people if we used all the arable farmland. We don't want 10 billion people though, and unfortunately it's just going to get worse and worse from here on out. And I don't like to be a pessimist, but the earth is way oversaturated with people because of the way that we live. I believe that 7 billion people could live on this earth if we lived in harmony with the planet. But we don't. We don't kill just to eat. We kill because animals are in our way. We don't tear down forests. We do it for a little bit of farmland, not realizing the entire ecosystem is being destroyed. I feel very passionately about these things, and they're very important to me. But some of them, you have to ask yourself, what exactly are you going to do about it? And that's why I think it's easier for some people to get wrapped up in conspiracy theories and ideas about the Illuminati, because they don't have to focus on local issues or what's going on in their block. That's not always the case. I know people have very strong opinions about these things, and people really want to make a difference. But I'm honestly just really saying, please think about the type of information that you're researching, because if you're one of the people who's a seeker, like I am, a seeker of knowledge and life and information, it's important that we research things that are important, that we can learn from. When I moved my studies from things like conspiracies to things like photons and science, I started to actually learn about things, rather than just trying to take news articles and turn them into some conspiracy, which may or may not be true. And I guess this bothers me because I keep hearing people talking about how everything's faked, and all of these attacks are faked. And I have not seen a single news event happen in the last, say, year or two that I haven't seen instantly a YouTube video of somebody saying the whole thing was staged. Whether or not it's true, we've really got to move forward from this, because I think the paranoia has reached a pace where people are just afraid of everything, and they think that everything's a lie. And when people feel like they're being lied to, and they're disillusioned, they're going to act out. And many of them will act out criminally with the attitude of, well, fuck it. My government doesn't care about me. I'm just going to take mine. When I was younger, I used to have the attitude of, well, I'd never steal from a friend, but I'd steal from a grocery store, no problem. Why? Oh, because they have taxes to cover that. And it's all the system anyway. It's just the system. Or I'd take the food stamps when I didn't need them, I've never had food stamps, but just as an example. But in reality, you find out that all of these things hurt us all. Just like insurance fraud, Some guy fakes, his car getting broken into so he can get an insurance claim. All of these things help the individual but harm the system. And once I realized that, I started to, realize these are values that we all need to uphold. To respect the rules that we've set forth for our society. But that does not mean that you have to be society's bitch. And I think that a lot of times when people follow the rules, they're considered passive, they're considered sheeple. That word gets thrown around loosely. And I've seen that a lot of the people who are following the rules, they do understand what's going on. It's just that they understand it to a deeper level. And I don't like to say I'm one of the people who understands it to a deeper level, but it works much better in my life than the way I used to think. The things that I used to worry about or concern myself with. And here's the thing, that there are two different types of people who are interested in these really, the Illuminati type stuff. There are those who want to learn about it because it's interesting and they want to know what's going on, but then they become addicted to the fear and become attached to searching out and researching this stuff, like Nibiru and all these different ideas that scare people. And then there are those who put the information out knowing that the people are going to obsess over it. And so you'll find that most people advertising this kind of stuff have commercials on their channel. They are monetizing, which that's fine to monetize on your channel. But you'll find that all of the people who are talking about the fear-mongering, almost all of them have ads because they know what get views and they're in it for the views rather than the exposing of the corruption, if you get my drift. Now, please don't take me the wrong way. I'm not generalizing every YouTuber. I'm saying that a lot of these guys really, it's not, they don't have a solution to the problem. They're like Alex Jones. He's out there screaming at everybody about what's wrong with the government. And people are like, yeah, you tell him, Alex. Well, what the hell has he ever done? What is he doing besides just pissing people off? So you might be asking yourself, or you might not, what does any of this matter? Why do I seem like I appear frazzled over these people? I'm not, and I want that to be known. It's not something that I sit and think about. It's something that I put in the back of my mind, and I realize that these people are out there fear-mongering, and I moved on. And if I were to wrap all that back up to tie it into the beginning with spiritual experiences and these things that have been happening to me, I would like to walk away by saying why I think this is important is because there's a note I wrote on the wall right here. It was in permanent marker. I just saw it. It says, clear your mind, forget your distractions, if but only for a moment. That's exactly summarizing. Every time I look at that, whoa, camera popped down. Every time I look at that, I think about exactly what I'm saying here is when you forget the distractions, when you forget about the details and the things that are irritating or bothering you, and especially eliminate the fear from your life, then experiences come to you much more clearly and much more regularly. And I know people have been telling me this for years. I've read tons of, different, Buddhist philosophies and Zen writings that talk about, clearing your mind. So I've worked on eliminating that mental chatter. And that mental chatter includes things that are fearful, such as I'm walking down the street and I look up and I see a trail and I start thinking it's a chemtrail, and that they're polluting the environment. And now I can look at the ones at least by my house and understand that most likely the ones where I live are contrails just because of the way that they form. And realizing that having that awareness keeps the fear down, but really just eliminating the whole idea from the back of my mind altogether, embracing the beauty in each moment, in each day, and everything I see, instead of trying to pick things apart and find negativity everywhere. And some people will say, well, you have to, some people have to fight the negative things that are going on, and I totally agree. I'm just very fortunate to not be one of them anymore. The book that set me off was Behold a Pale Horse by William Cooper. And those who know Bill Cooper know him and, Alex Jones, and he's talked about all these different, Jordan Maxwell and all these guys who are into this, alternate knowledge, if you will, or alternate history of the U.S. and the world. All of these people have a little piece of the puzzle, but people get too wrapped up in the details, start to believe everything, and they start missing things in life. So, by attaching to certain beliefs or fears, you tend to miss the things that are calling towards you. And I know that in my life at least, I'm finally starting to make these things cohere to where I'm not depressed anymore about stupid things. I don't get stressed about things I can't change. I don't wake up with a pit in my stomach about how I'm going to finish this or get that done. In fact, in my life right now, I probably have more problems than I've ever had as far as, like, financial issues and health problems. But I'm as happy as I've ever been. I've been able to make the most of every situation I'm in, and by allowing that to happen, the mind calms on its own. And it's, when I hear others talk about calming the mind, it just seems cheesy to me, because it's very hard to explain to people how to do these things. You don't just meditate overnight and wake up with a new mind. Everything we do requires effort and a consistent dedication. So in the end, I'm just a dude with opinions and ideals and some theories about what life means, but for the most part, in my personal life, what has worked to make me happier is to clear my mind of any of the negativities. I don't worry about what happened before I was born or what's going to happen after I die. I worry about really nothing. I just try to concern myself with living a day-to-day life as best I can with the best values I can. And no other man lives the same life I do, nor do I live the same life as any other man or woman. I always mean man as man and woman, although some people find that offensive. I meet a lot of good people who are very not like-minded, but kind-minded, who understand where I'm coming from. And a lot of my subs who I haven't got along with, we're not on the same page, that's fine. A lot of the subs that I do, but maybe we change or part ways, that's fine too, and that's great. But the people who I've discussed these issues with over time, I really respect your views, and I'm glad that I've been able to observe how other people react and other people discuss issues to understand a little bit more about what's really important to people and why. And if it weren't for that, I'd never know what fear-mongering even was. I'd probably still be scared if the sky was falling. But I'm doing the best I can, and I feel like the universe has been speaking to me. And these little events I hope to increase. And they say be careful what you ask for, you may get it. And I've always sought clarity of mind, but I've always been very reluctant to ask for it. I've never outright, said to the universe, to God, whatever, hey, I want second sight, I want to know this or know that. I've just humbly waited and searched out things in hopes that the right thing will cross my mind. But I've almost feared that if I ask out loud, then I might get what I ask for. And just like prayer, the manifested word, the vibration of the word, the intention. And it's been a strange ride, and I think it's going to get a lot weirder. But that's what I wanted, right? That's what life's all about. Living the strangeness. I guess sometimes you can ask yourself, hey, are we crazy? Are the sanest of us, those of us who say, oh yeah, we're the normal ones, are we the crazy ones? If that's compared and judged against our standard of society right now, I'd rather be crazy.